Peace and love, family. Hotep, beloved family, it is my extreme honor and blessing to introduce our guest this evening on African Holistic Healing with Ambassador Asar. Dr. Phil Valentine, or Brother Valentine as we affectionately call him, is a hygienic scientist, a naturopath, a metaphysician, a clinical hypnotherapist, a polymathematician, a lecturer, a freethinker, and most of all, our Grand Master teacher and premier scholar on spirituality and our culture in general. Let's be clear, this is not a discussion with our peers tonight, family. This is a time to listen attentively and learn from our elder and our beloved brother, Dr. Phil Valentine. Hotep and greetings, Brother Phil.
Hotep King, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, and I feel blessed tonight to have you in our presence, brother, and it's an honor, and I thank you so very much for being on our show tonight.
My pleasure, brother, my pleasure.
Tonight's subject is mind control through foods. This show is going to analyze and discuss mind control through using foods, how we are mentally and socially controlled through the foods we eat, and how do we break free from the grip of this mind control program. And this light cold lockdown, as Brother Phil Valentine has alluded to and spoke on and built on for years now. And if you need to YouTube him, callers that is not up to speed with his brother's teachings, you need to do so and catch up. For those of you that know, you need to stay tuned. So, Brother Phil, let's get right into it tonight. This is the new form of mind control that the powers that be are using on our people. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, it's been a while. But back in, say, 1998, 99, I began teaching on a method of mind control that most people were not very much into at that time. Most of the time I had introduced everyone to a brother named Brother Brian Wrong. And during that time I spoke about the chips that were found in his ears or down in his ear canal, around by his throat, by his esophagus, in his chest cavity, down in his back, around his spine. These chips were placed in strategic places. The brother was operated on while he was incarcerated. And we were discussing ways that they were going to artificially chip us or to upload us or to place different types of chips and gadgets in us in order to monitor us. But I began speaking about a way of getting us to do what they needed us to do, if for nothing else, but to control us without them having to oversee us. In other words, to control us in such a way that we are self-motivated, we are pretty much operating and behaving in line with what they want us to be anyway. I began to speak about something called nanogenetic mind control, the way to manipulate and to use the essential elements that humans need to create conditions in the body that the body would automatically become compliant to, and that is to create conditions and behaviorisms in the genetics through food, to bend and to pervert genetics in such a way as to teach our genetics. So the more that we eat in a specific way, the more we eat specific foods, the more we mutate or degenerate our natural genetic structure, coding. And before you know it, the genetics would be tailor-made in such a way as to drop the ceiling of our awareness, to make sure that we don't have the intelligence or the level of insight or the ability to use our mental acuity to be able to solve our own problems, to be able to see inside of our own situation and therefore rectify them, to change them. So yes, we've been talking about the way food can be used, and now we see that some 9 years, 8 years later, we are now looking at the change in the genetic structure of foods to the point where we no longer know what it is, and that Monsanto, for instance, has created seeds that no longer can give you a crop in perpetuity. In other words, you can get a crop, but then after that, the crop itself doesn't create any seeds, and it dies. Therefore, you have to continuously buy your seeds from Monsanto. So yeah, it's already begun, that particular.
Monsanto, these are the same people that came up with the Agent Orange, Monsanto, with the Roundup, using these herbicides and pesticides. We were talking about Monsanto a little bit in the Consciousness of Foods program, and they have this genetically, it's interesting that you talk about this, and you said this before, we really even became aware of this, the genetically engineered foods or genetically modified foods. In other words, actually modifying or changing our genetics through the foods.
Exactly. And once we change genetics, once we begin to become less of what we need to be as full human beings, we become automatic automatons. We become slaves, or we have created an underclass, a genetic underclass, pretty much what they foresee, what the Nazis, the so-called Illuminatis, and people who play at being the elite, what I call the parasite elite or the parasitic elite. They sit around all day to find new ways to control us through the birth cycle, to control us through the mind cycles, through thought, through word, and through deed. And these people spend billions of dollars and find the most brilliant of minds to find ways to lock humanity down or to maintain them in the paradigm, in a creative as well as living paradigm that suits them, that maintains their superiority.